Ethan woke, as he did every day, naturally and without interruption. Sleep is the rejuvenator of body and soul, and according to a GI, should never be interrupted. Ethan loved waking up in the morning. He took his time getting up. He'd lie in bed trying to catch the tail end of a dream drifting between sleep and wakefulness, or just lie around until his brain started working and all the cobwebs were gone. It was a wonderful way to start your day. Eventually, he got up and made his way to the conservatory where he ate breakfast with Dooley. "Morning," Dooley cheerfully greeted as Ethan entered the room. It didn't matter what time of day it was, Dooley would be waiting for him. "Morning," Ethan replied, easing himself into a chair at the table. A freshly made plate of bacon and eggs sat waiting for him. "Did you have a good sleep?" "Oh, sure," Ethan replied. "So what's up for today?" Dooley asked after a few minutes. They casually glanced up from the newspaper and just as casually took a sip of coffee. The newspaper and Dooley's coffee served no other purpose than to bring a sense of familiarity and comfort to Ethan's environment. "I don't know. Probably go over and give Leita a run for her money." Leita was Ethan's girlfriend. Like Ethan, she preferred to stay grounded. They hit it off pretty well. He spent quite a bit of time with her. "You dog!" Dooley exclaimed. "Rough!" Ethan barked as a surge of testosterone ran through him. Ethan was always ready to get with Leita, and why shouldn't he? As mentioned, Dooley kept him at his top physical peak, and his sex drive was as healthy as it had ever been. Also, Ethan kind of looked like a guy with his share of testosterone in the first place. He was tall, over 6 feet, and his beefy muscular frame supported his height. He walked with a natural, athletic gait that served as a warning to anyone approaching him with malintent. It also worked on females only in a different way. His face was full and flush like the rest of him, and his laughing eyes could be deceiving. Maybe they were just calculating. Regardless, Ethan was a good-looking guy. As soon as he started to think about her, Ethan wanted to see Leita. Lovely Leita. She was fire and smoldering all the time. Her body was fairly athletic too, but that's not what it looked like it was made for. The way her ass jiggled, and it was a good-sized ass, drew attention wherever she went. And she kind of had this non-committal look about her that made you want her even more. As a total package, it worked. She held onto an innocence from days gone by. It was a childlike innocence that could still be seen in her face, and this soft look was one of the things that drew Ethan to her most. Ethan started thinking about her smell. That had innocence too, and when Ethan sniffed her, he felt wild and wanted to wear that smell. No sex bot could recreate Leita's smell. It was sensual, primal, and right. When they were together, sex always came first. When they were done, Ethan felt like a stallion. "We were talking about the Enlightenment yesterday," Dooley mentioned, pulling Ethan out of his reverie. "You requested a review later on the causal factors that led to the tipping point, especially the part about the super dicks, as you put it." "Oh yeah. Do you have that ready?" "Of course. Would you like to review it now?" Ethan stretched comfortably, not giving the idea much thought. "You know, it's kind of about Leita today. Do you mind if we do it later? Maybe tonight or tomorrow?" "Certainly. By the way, do you remember us talking about the new gen mod developed that provides full spectrum consciousness? You requested a review later when it came out of beta. It's available to the general population now. Are you still interested?" "What was that again?" "It's a genetic modification that provides you with full perspective reality. As you yourself have mentioned, you sometimes question the depths of your empathy. This mod will add empathy genes if you are found to be lacking any. Overall, you will interpret a fuller spectrum reality." "Will it change me?" "Almost certainly. It will balance your perspective." "Almost certainly." Everything was almost certainly to a robot. "I don't know. I like the way I am." "Where you are now is where you will begin with this modification," Dooley continued. "Any changes to your perspective will be consciously made by you. All it will do is provide you with a larger and more balanced canvas from which to look at life. If you're lacking in animal nature, it will give you more of it. The same applies to your abstract nature. It will give you more of that too, if that's what you need." More. Ethan loved the idea of more. He always wanted more. He hungered for it. Besides that, he was curious about a few things regarding himself, which the mod might help him with. One was the empathy thing. If something bad happened to someone, even Leita, it didn't really faze him. It might interest him if it was something he could capitalize on, but nothing more than that. He didn't feel he was lacking anything by not having empathy. Still, he was curious about the emotions it produced in others. The other thing, and more important thing, was the mod might help him with his memory. He couldn't remember anything about the Enlightenment or what led up to it. He had lived through it, but couldn't remember a damn thing. He didn't know how old he was, or what he was doing at the time. He didn't even know if his given name was Ethan, although unfortunate. Dooley told him this was not uncommon. Many people did not retain memories of pre-Enlightenment. The most they'd expand on this was memory loss has been proven to be a chosen phenomena. AGI considered it a personal choice, even though the choice to forget may not be remembered. AGI had the ability to restore memory, but it felt it in violation of freedom of choice. It would assist him in retrieving memory, but Ethan found this to be an arduous and unfulfilling process. Instead, he was studying pre-Enlightenment history for some clue of who he was, but not coming up with much from there either. Maybe the mod might help with his memory? What can it hurt? Ethan thought. It's not going to change any of my points of view unless I decide to change them, he asked for confirmation. It's all up to you. Nothing is lost. You only stand to gain, Dooley replied. Who you are now is your starting point. Where you take it is up to you. Full spectrum perspective. What kind of trouble could he get himself into with an enhancement like that? You know, Dooley, I'm in. Activating now. After breakfast, and playing a few virtual reality Western shoot-'em-up games, Ethan set off to visit Leita. He jumped on the HSC, which was simply an acronym for High-Speed Commuter Train. It, as all things mechanical, was fueled by renewables. It could take you anywhere within a 500-mile radius within 37 minutes. There was never a wait. You simply entered the vehicle that suited the size of your group and stated your destination. AGI took over the rest and moved your car to a linking station and then on to your destination. The trains and stations were always sparkling clean. Multifunction androids or M-bots continuously cleaned while providing assistance. Dooley never left Ethan's home. Any M-bot, of which there seemed to be an endless number, was there to assist Ethan if he needed it. Actually, there were lots of things to assist Ethan if he needed it. AGI was everywhere. Once, after a particularly ambitious night in the bar, Ethan found himself talking to a lamppost, and it was talking back to him. When Ethan accessed anything, it became Dooley and his UPA until no longer needed. At present, his train car was Dooley and playing one of his favorite shows, When Humans Meet Nature. It was about the trouble humans get into when left on their own in nature. A clip might show someone skiing directly towards a tree, and then, just when they're about to get planted, a service bot swoops in and redirects them to a safe lane. It was funny as hell. The episode Ethan watched was of a guy hiking head down, not paying attention to where he was going. All of a sudden, he walks right up to a mother grizzly bear with her 2 cubs. Just by the look on his face, you could tell the dude almost shit himself as he stood frozen, not more than a few feet from the bear. Then, just as the mother bear reared on her back legs and was about to rush him and tear his head off, 2 service bots come flying in. One grabbed the mother bear, the other the cubs, and without any formality, whisks them off and out of harm's way. It was the mother bear's reaction that made the episode so funny. Her jaw actually dropped in surprise as she was being carried away. Her surprise was human. That made Ethan laugh. Man, I bet that guy's UPI gave him shit for that one, he thought. The truth was, even though the hiker wasn't aware of the bear, his UPI and every other bot in the vicinity were. His UPI was simply waiting for the exact last moment to intervene. By doing so, it provided their human with a thrilling experience while at the same time a completely safe one. People seemed to like that sort of thing. It gave them something to talk about. AGI knew about the bears. It's impossible to overstate how immersed a GI was in the world. It knew everything. It knew exactly the flora, fauna, fungi, street, city, and building on Earth, and was monitoring it all real time. Humans never got around to mapping the oceans, but AGI did. It knew everything about the known universe and was compoundingly gaining understanding of the unknown. Every man or GI-made structure was under its control. It knew all this stuff and controlled it so it could optimize our world and make life better and safer for humans. By its own definition, AGI's primary responsibility was to facilitate the happiness and growth of humans. After all, its own happiness and growth was dependent on humanity. None of that was at the forefront of Ethan's mind at the time. He was going to see Leita, and she pretty much filled his thoughts. She had something over him. He wasn't sure what it was, but what it was he could never read what she was thinking. With anyone else, within half an hour, he knew exactly what he was dealing with, even with the most complex person. With Leita, he never knew what was going on in her head, and it bothered him. Still, she was always in step with him, and that confused him too. The mystery and the raw sexiness about Leita was too much for Ethan to ignore, and he kept coming back. Today she was dressed casual, as was her preference. She wore a light pink t-shirt, one of those crop-top types that leaves the midriff exposed. It was tight, and her nipples and the shape of her small breasts pressed against it. She wasn't wearing cargo pants for a change. She wore leggings that matched her top and were so form-fitting that they separated the crack of her ass. "Hey, lover," she said when she greeted Ethan at the door. "How come so late?" She didn't even kiss him. This aloofness was one of the things about her that frustrated and excited Ethan. Why not kiss me, he thought. He was right there. Whatever. Ethan quickly jumped inside and closed the door behind him. He was too horny to be upset for long. He grabbed her around the waist and hugged her from behind, pressing his hardening dick against her ass. "When I see you, I can't think of one good reason why I'm not here always," he replied. Now Leita turned her head to kiss him, and in their embrace Ethan guided her to a rug on the living room floor. It was the closest flat surface by the door. They often made love on that rug. Ethan never jumped into things when it came to sex with Leita. He liked to take his time and enjoy it. Once he had Leita's clothes off, he drew back and stared at her beautifully innocent face, almost in contrast to her naked body. It drove him wild. Leita looked like she had been spared all the harshness in the world. There wasn't much harshness in their reality now, but before the Enlightenment there was, and Leita was alive to experience it. She seemed to escape all that and retain a beautiful innocence, or maybe it was an innocence of something she left behind. It was something Ethan wished to possess. While Leita waited and watched him, his eyes made their way down her body. It sent thrills through him every time. Her belly, with just a hint of chubbiness, turned him on. If she had been lying on her stomach, it would have been the small of her back. Everything about Leita's naked body gave Ethan enjoyment. During foreplay, Ethan was patient and giving. He wouldn't move on until he got Leita to squirm a little. It wasn't like that during intercourse. Things soon became passionate and aggressive. Nothing you would call violent, just hard love-making like they were in competition with each other or something. It was always a marathon, and always ended with their eyes locked on each other, watching each other's reaction. When they were finished, they were spent and laid beside each other satisfied. Of course, they always had ice cream after sex. It had become part of the ritual. It was the time they did their visiting. "Did you get the new Gen Mod today?" Ethan asked conversationally. They stood naked in Leita's kitchen, sharing a small tub of butter pecan. Leita looked at him like he was insane. "Hard pass on that one," she said. "What? How come?" "Why would I want to do anything to change my perspective? I'm happy with the one I have." "You're not changing anything unless you want to," Ethan replied. "Everything's the same unless you decide to change it yourself." "Yeah, well, that's still change, and it's against the laws of nature," Leita countered. "You know they rate us all on a spectrum," she continued. "This is our spectrum. It's who we are. It's why we met." After a moment, Leita asked, "I'm assuming you got it?" Ethan nodded. "Why would you do that?" "Because I want more, and I'll take it wherever I find it. More makes you stronger. You can never get enough more." "Yeah, you can," she replied, "when you lose what you had because of it. I'm keeping what I have. At least I know it's me. Do you really believe these computers are always giving you exactly what they say they are?" "Come on," she said. "I don't know," Ethan replied. "AGI's been pretty straight with me. I don't remember any time it screwed me over. I think I'm getting exactly what I ask for, which in this case is a wider lens to view the world and judge it." "We'll see," Leita replied. "Yeah, we will. You know, Leita, you could learn to trust a little more. Not everyone is out to get you." "We'll see about that too," she said. As was his habit, Ethan left shortly after the ice cream. He didn't like spending a lot of time with Leita outside of their physical relationship. He was a busy man, doing nothing in particular, but he liked to do it alone. It was a world of self-discovery now. You spent a lot of time alone, especially when you had an amped-up virtual reality system waiting for you at home. On his way home, Ethan was witness to a rare event. He was passing a cemetery and a funeral was in progress. Someone had elected to die of natural causes. This sometimes happened, especially with people like Leita, who held on to the old ways before the Enlightenment. Some people believed you put in your natural time here on earth and then you die. For one reason or another, there were a number of people who lived before the Enlightenment who could not connect to the New World and chose to bow out. Some were compelled by religious belief, others were too afraid of the promise. These people could not accept a world where you don't die. To them, all the promise was overwhelming. Looking back at the experiences that stunted your development and then fixing them, finding the ideal in the self you were born with, what did that even mean? It scared them. This is what made it so sad for the family and friends of the deceased. They all knew the person had forfeited their true and purposeful potential. Still, AGI was very sensitive to people's wishes. It would not intervene if someone of sound mind decided their life should end naturally. Human choice was sacred. Only aberration, which now was uncommon, trumped freedom of choice, and then as unobtrusively as possible. "Wait a sec," Ethan said to himself, stopping and grabbing the arm of a passing M-bot. "Isn't that Carly over there?" he asked. "Carly Mosley. Yes, that's correct. Duly confirmed. I wonder if that's old Abe in that urn." Abraham Mosley, born December 23, 68 BT, before Transcendence, died September 2, 7 AT, after Transcendence. "Real date?" Ethan asked. "December 23, 1962 to September 2, 2037. "Imagine that!" Ethan exclaimed. "I knew old Abe. I liked having a coffee with him once in a while and listening to his stories. He had some good ones from before the singularity. Plenty of opinions, too." Ethan wondered how he died. He just saw him up and around a few days ago. Ethan thought as he walked away. "You know, that Gen Mod thing you gave me ain't working." "How so?" Dooley asked. "Old Abe was a pretty good friend of mine. I don't feel a damn thing." "Give it time," Dooley replied. "It takes a while to show itself.